Speed is thrilling, power is addictive. But when speed meets art, that is when legends are born. Back in the early 2000s, the car world saw a three-way clash that felt more like a duel between philosophies than machines. On one side, you had the Pagani Zonda, a hand-sculpted Italian masterpiece that looked like it belonged in a museum. Then there was the Ferrari F430, the child of pure racing pedigree built with surgical precision. And across the ocean, roaring into the ring with brute force and American pride, came the Ford GT, a revival of a racing hero. 3 cars, 3 countries, 3 visions of perfection. But the question remains, when art faced power, who truly won? To understand why this rivalry mattered, you have to look at where the world stood. The early 2000s were wild years for supercars. Technology was evolving faster than ever. The internet was connecting car lovers globally. Suddenly, enthusiasts could compare performance numbers in real time. And that is what made the clash between the Zonda, the F430, and the GT so fascinating. Each car wasn't just a product, it was a statement. Let's start with the Pagani Zonda. Horacio Pagani wasn't a big car company CEO, he was an artist. An Argentinian dreamer who once swept floors at Lamborghini before deciding to build his own supercar from scratch. He didn't want to create the fastest car in the world, he wanted to create the most beautiful one. The Zonda was his masterpiece. Every curve, every screw, every inch of carbon fiber was built with obsessive perfection. The car looked alive. It didn't just move through the air, it sculpted it. Under the hood, it had a 7.3-liter AMG V12 engine from Mercedes-Benz. The sound wasn't a roar, it was an orchestra. It revved to the heavens, screaming with character, unlike anything else on the road. But here's the thing, the Zonda wasn't about numbers. It wasn't chasing top speed records or trying to destroy lap times. It was built for emotion, to make you feel something when you drove it. And that made it both magical and impractical. Because while it looked and sounded like a dream, it came at an insane cost. Pagani only built a few dozen of them, each more exclusive than the last. The price tag wasn't just for performance, it was for identity. Now let's switch to the Ferrari F430. If the Zonda was art, the F430 was science. Ferrari built this car to bridge tradition and technology. It replaced the 360 Modena and instantly became the gold standard for what a mid-engine supercar should be. The F430 had a 4.3-liter naturally aspirated V8 that produced 490 horsepower. But numbers alone didn't define it. What made it special was how it felt. Every inch of the car was tuned for precision. The steering was razor sharp, the throttle response was immediate. And the sound, Ferrari 5.8s have a distinct shriek that makes your hair stand on end. The F430 captured that perfectly, but Ferrari didn't stop there. The car introduced an electronic differential, or e-diff, directly inspired by Formula One technology. It allowed the driver to control how much power went to each wheel. Combine that with the now famous Maranello switch on the steering wheel, and suddenly you could feel like a racer every time you hit the road. It wasn't as wild-looking as the Zonda, but it was built to be driven hard, not just admired from afar. It was the perfect balance of beauty and aggression. And then came the Ford GT, the American entry in this story, the underdog with history running through its veins. See, the GT wasn't just a new car, it was a resurrection, a tribute to the legendary GT40 that crushed Ferrari at Le Mans in the 1960s. Ford built the GT as a statement, a reminder that America could still play with the Italians at the top level. It had a 5.4-liter supercharged V8 that made over 500 horsepower. It wasn't delicate or sophisticated like the Europeans. It was raw, mechanical, and loud. And that's exactly what made it so beloved. While the Zonda was elegance and the Ferrari was finesse, the Ford GT was muscle. You didn't caress it through corners, you wrestled it. It wasn't trying to be perfect, it was trying to be powerful. And yet, somehow, it was more than that. It was emotional. It reminded car lovers of an era when racing was brutal, when risk was part of the thrill, and when cars had soul. So here we had 3 cars that couldn't be more different. The Zonda was handcrafted emotion. The Ferrari was engineered precision, and the Ford GT was nostalgic power. But which one was truly better? Let's break that down. On the track, the Ferrari F430 had the edge. It was the lightest, the most balanced, and the easiest to control at the limit. It was the car you could drive fast without fear. It rewarded skill and punished arrogance. The Zonda, on the other hand, was terrifyingly quick but demanded respect. Its rear-wheel drive and massive power made it a beast to handle. It wasn't for amateurs, it was for drivers who wanted to dance with danger. The Ford GT sat somewhere in between. It had monstrous straight-line speed, but its weight and size meant it wasn't as nimble in tight corners. Still, on long stretches of open road, it felt unstoppable. So in terms of pure performance, Ferrari took the technical win. But that's not the whole story, because cars are not just about lap times, they are about emotion. And on that front, the Zonda destroyed the competition. Driving a Zonda wasn't just driving, it was theater. You sat inches above the ground, surrounded by carbon fiber and titanium, with that AMG V12 screaming behind you. Every vibration, every gear change felt alive. The Ferrari made you feel fast. The Zonda made you feel something deeper. As for the Ford GT, it made you feel proud. It wasn't the most refined or the most advanced, but it carried history on its shoulders. It felt like driving a legacy. Now here's the fascinating part. Each car represented its maker's philosophy perfectly. Pagani believed in beauty, Ferrari believed in mastery, Ford believed in muscle. And that is why this comparison was never really about which was better. It was about what you valued. If you believed cars should stir the soul, the Zonda was the ultimate dream. If you believed cars should be driven hard and precisely, the Ferrari was your weapon. If you believed cars should roar with pride and heritage, the Ford GT was your heart. The rivalry between these three wasn't even official. There were no formal races or competitions between them, but fans turned it into one anyway. Car forums lit up with debates, magazine reviews compared them side by side, YouTube videos dissected every sound, every shift, every number, and slowly these cars became symbols of different eras colliding. The Zonda was the last of the truly analog hypercars. The Ferrari F430 was the bridge to the digital age, and the Ford GT was a love letter to the past. What makes their story timeless is how it captures the essence of why we love cars in the first place. Because no matter how advanced electric vehicles get, no matter how fast future supercars become, we will never forget the sound, the smell, and the feel of machines like these. They represented more than transport, they represented identity. When you saw someone driving a Zonda, you knew they valued art. When you saw someone in an F430, you knew they valued skill. And when you saw someone in a Ford GT, you knew they valued history. Three different roads to greatness. Looking back now, all three cars have become icons. Their prices have skyrocketed, their production numbers are tiny, and their legacy only grows stronger with time. The Zonda especially became mythical. Pagani refused to let it die. Even after announcing its successor, he kept making special editions for collectors who begged for one more. The Ferrari F430 paved the way for models like the 458 and the 488. Its DNA still runs in modern Ferraris today, and the Ford GT proved that American engineering could compete with anyone. It inspired a new generation of GTS that carried the same attitude into the future. If you think about it, the rivalry never really ended. Every time a new supercar comes out, it's judged against the same standards these three set. Article, precision, power. You can't build a modern hypercar without being compared to them. They weren't just cars, they were philosophies on wheels. And maybe that's the real point. The Zonda, the F430, and the Ford GT were never meant to destroy each other. They existed to define what greatness could mean from different perspectives. In a world obsessed with numbers, they reminded us that emotion still matters. That design and soul still have a place in a world of data and speed. They showed that art can face power and both can win. So when we look back at this golden era of supercars, we don't just see machines, we see ideas made real. The artist, the perfectionist, and the rebel, all battling for the same thing: immortality. The Zonda taught us that cars can be art. The Ferrari F430 taught us that cars can be instruments of mastery. The Ford GT reminded us that cars can carry history forward with pride. And maybe that's why we still talk about them, because deep down, we don't fall in love with specs or stats, we fall in love with stories. So what about you? If you had to choose between art, precision, or power, which one would you drive home?